Hello, everyone. I would say good morning, although I'm not sure what time zone you're in, but we're so glad you're able to join us today. If you are looking for information on careers on supply chain and supply management at Medtronic, you are at the right place. My name is Susan, and I'm a project manager for the research and innovation team at SHPE. And we have partnered together with Medtronic to provide opportunities for students to engage in full-time paid internships for the summer of 2023. These internships are a little bit different at SHPE. What we are working with Medtronic to do is to provide more of a holistic support model. So through the application process, through getting ready to go to the internship, through mentoring experiences and some different events that we will do online and hopefully some in person, getting you ready to go to your internship. And then when you're at the internship, doing some support events throughout the summer and things. So really trying to create that familia experience that we have at SHPE, and I know is very important at Medtronic as well for the SHPE Medtronic interns. Just a couple of housekeeping things for what we're going to do here in the next hour. I am going to share the recording of this session with all of the people who registered and also through some of our other platforms to get the word out. So when it's time to ask questions in the Q&A, you are more than welcome to share your screen, to show your face, ask questions directly. But if you would rather just type them in the chat, you're welcome to do that as well. Our goal today is really to just explore these careers and get all of your questions answered. So your questions are the most important questions today. So don't be afraid to type one in the chat or raise your hand, and we will make sure that you get all of your questions answered today. Let me just start with a quick introduction with our three panelists, Genoa, Megan, and Ruben, and I'm going to let each one of them introduce themselves. And if we'll start with Genoa, if you will just share who you are, what was your undergraduate major in college, your current role at Medtronic, and just a little bit about your journey. How did you get to where you are today? So Genoa, would you like to kick us off?
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. So hi, I'm Genoa. I graduated just over a year ago studying with a degree in supply chain and operation management. So then I had done the internship program with Medtronic and worked part-time through my senior year. And so I just transitioned smoothly into a full-time position as a demand planner at Medtronic. So basically forecasting how much we're going to sell in the upcoming years. So I actually just this week changed positions. I moved over to a finance role now. So I'm currently a pricing strategy analyst instead. So it's a very odd jump. But you know, what kind of pushed me into those two roles is trying to just get an understanding of how the business operates. So, you know, demand planning really shows the direction of the business moving forward, how much we're going to be doing in the upcoming years on the growth. And then pricing is much more hands-on and day-to-day. So that's what pushed me there. So I'm getting a long-term perspective and a short-term perspective.
Wonderful. Congrats on your new role.
Thank you.
Megan, how about you?
Yes, nice to meet everyone. So let's see, I went to Arizona State University, graduated in 2020, and I had two majors while I was there. I studied supply chain management and marketing professional sales, all to come out of college and go into an analytics role with Medtronic. So I'm currently an advanced analytics analyst, and I work on developing data tools for the enterprise. How I got here, it all started with a Medtronic internship a few years ago. I guess it was coming out of my sophomore year, or let's see, coming out of my junior year, I believe. I had a internship with Medtronic. I was doing something very similar to what I'm doing now. It was within the analytics space, and I just loved the company, loved what I was doing, loved the team that I was on, and just knew that I wanted to be with Medtronic. So after my internship, I was offered a full-time role, and I've been here ever since. So that's how I ended up where I am.
Awesome. Thank you so much. I was just out in Arizona. It's lovely. Warm, but lovely.
Very hot. Yes.
Awesome. Ruben, how about you?
I'm an old timer in this business. I graduated from the Technological Institute of Durango, Mexico. I've been in the company in Medtronic. It's going to be 20 years in October, and overall more than 30 years in the medical device manufacturing industry. And it's been in operations and engineering. My degree, undergrad degree, is electrical and industrial engineering, right? And through these many years, I've been from production supervisor to industrial engineer to manufacturing engineer, and I started to take roles of increased responsibility to management and so forth. Back in 2008, I was invited to join the office in Boulder as a project manager, and then I moved into managing the engineering group within operations for new product development, introduction of new products in globally. We introduce products in Mexico, in the US, in China, in Taiwan, and so forth. And it's very relevant, this topic about supply chain, because of what we do as engineers or advanced manufacturing is to look at the end-to-end manufacturing, all the way from the supply chain through manufacturing to distribution. So I hope I can share some insights with you guys during this presentation.
Oh, thank you so much, and congratulations on your 20 years. That's awesome.
Thank you. Thank you.
I'm going to ask each of you, and Genoa, I know you just started your new position, but kind of thinking back to your position that you just left, tell us a little bit about what does your typical day look like? And I know that's probably a loaded question, right? Because there's no typical day. Like every day is a little bit different. But if you can just give us some insight into a day in your life, how much time do you spend in meetings, one-on-one, team meetings, working on projects? What does a typical day look like in your current role right now? And we'll start back with Genoa.
Yeah, of course. So yeah, I'll go back to my supply chain role as a demand planner. So I was actually a global demand planner, which means within the region. So, specifically like Latin America, the US, Western Europe and stuff like that, there are regional demand planners, and they're the ones who actually create the forecast. So my role was taking, the leadership perspective. So where did they think, like our leadership, where did they think the business was going to be heading, and helping the regions kind of connect what the regions were expecting and what leadership was expecting. So I was almost a bridge between the two. So certainly a lot of meetings, with the regions at very odd hours, because around the world is different time zones. So definitely a lot of meetings on that front. The other big portion of my role was analytics. So looking at the data, when you're forecasting, you're looking at trends and growth rates. And so trying to decide if the forecasts that were entered were accurate compared to what we have been seeing. So a lot of time in Excel as well. I would say that's probably the majority of it, probably about 60% of the role. And then certainly projects is another one. So, process improvement, a lot of emails and meetings back and forth. So how can we decrease that and improve, productivity and communication?
Awesome. I'm guessing you could teach a class or two on Excel.
Yes, there's definitely people on my team that are much more experienced, but I could probably, do the beginner's course.
Awesome. Megan, how about you? What's your day look like?
Yes. So mine's a little bit different than Genova's. So although I'm an advanced analytics analyst, my role is very project-based. So instead of, Genova was saying she works a lot within Excel, mine's a lot of more developing tools for analytics. So I would say 30 to 40% of my time is spent in meetings. And then I would say the rest of it is just about project work. One thing is Medtronic is, at least my group, is working very hard on decreasing the amount of meetings that we have. So we've been very strategic about, why are we meeting? Can we consolidate our meetings? Can we make them maybe 15, 20 minutes longer and talk about more so we can decrease, having the rest of these calls? So we've been very strategic about that. Now a lot of my day is spent doing project work, and with project work comes additional calls. But I think they're pretty fun calls because I get to jump on with another analyst and we're working on a project and we're trying to figure out how to make things work if things, are broken, or If we're trying to develop a solution, you know, we can kind of put our brains together. So a lot of my calls are collaborative. They aren't, I would say, presentation focused meetings, which tends to be pretty fun. So I have less meetings, but I do project work throughout my day.
That's great to hear about trying to just look at efficiency. And I think everybody likes less meetings, right? I heard another team yesterday talk about Focus Fridays, where they really try not to book anything on Fridays and just get work done. So that's great to hear. Ruben, how about you? What does your typical day look like?
So I want to speak in general. My role currently as global contract manufacturing, we have two focus areas. One is keep the business running, we call it, meaning making sure we resolve the issues that come up. We have issues, many different types of issues, such as shortages of materials, such as a manufacturing process having a machine that is breaking down that we need to fix, or a specification that cannot be met, if you will, things of that nature. And then continuous improvement, which is looking for ways to reduce waste variation that limits the supplier's ability to deliver our products. But I'm going to specifically talk about my role in supporting a couple of metrics. One is on time to commit, and the other one is on time to request. So in that space, I'm working with a demand planner, a supply chain planner, and the manufacturing planner, right? So from the perspective of a demand planner, this is the group that actually builds the demand forecast. Genoa was speaking about it, right? And this role helps allocate the robots. I mean, the surgical robotics organization. I don't know if you guys are familiar with a Hugo robot. It's a $1 million robot that is now being deployed in Latin America and Europe, which is going to be used for surgeons to do surgery through this robot, right? 4 arms being maneuvered by in a 3D console by a surgeon. So we have about 3,500 components that build this robot. So the demand planner is helping once we have the demand, helping allocate where these robots are going globally, right? The supply chain planner then conveys that forecast to the manufacturing planners, right? So they go through this process of, they call it open order report. Basically, they say, our planners say, we need, let's say, 50 robots in this quarter, right? The planner from the contract manufacturing says, well, I can only give you 30 because of my constraints in the supply chain. So a day in the life of these planners is basically resolving these supply chain issues by calling the suppliers, making sure they honor the commitments in terms of delivery of components, a number of considerations in that dynamic. But it's very interesting how they need to understand the lead times of these components. As I said, managing 3,500 components is not that simple. But then they also need to understand the capacity of the many different assembly lines, how many they can produce per day or per week. So there is a harmonization of the demand versus capability, right? So my role in engineering is to make sure the capacity is there. Their role is to make sure they manage all these numbers, to make sure we have that achievement of the requirements that we submit to the suppliers.
That's really interesting. Somebody was asking in one of the other panels the other day about Hugo. And so we've talked about that a little bit in one of the other panels. And as I listen to all three of you, I just imagine you all as symphony conductors, right? Like it's just about managing and making touching point and making sure that everybody's in harmony and everybody's doing what they need to be doing. Really, really exciting, important work that you all are doing. Think back to when you chose your career, or maybe your career chose you, which I think sometimes happens in our life too. But what was that like for you? And we'll start with Ruben this time. How did you choose this career? What was your journey like, and the different touch points, and how you got to where you are today?
Interesting. I think for me, it began with solving issues, solving problems. What was my motivation? So I figure engineering is gonna provide a number of issues to resolve, right? So when I joined the industry, the position was production supervisor. Well, it's like entry level. I think it was complicated to aspire to get to an engineering position, such as an industrial engineer. So I took the role of production supervisor, and I'm glad I did that because I learned what it takes to put together a product. Right, I was actually working directly with assemblers, and I challenged myself to be able to work at the rate they work. By doing that, I learned the challenges they face in a daily basis about not having the right tools to assemble things together and so forth. And from there, I grew my career in engineering to design better tools, to design machines to assist in assembling these products. So because of that experience, I decided to move in the direction of engineering to assist and help in the effort and the process to provide medical device products to patients.
Awesome. Sounds like saying yes to some opportunities in there.
Absolutely. Yeah, it is. And again, life is solving issues, right? From many angles. So if you have the passion for solving issues, engineering within the many disciplines, including this one, is there for us to solve challenges.
Great. Megan, how about you, as you were navigating your undergraduate career and kind of making choices? How did you choose this as your career?
Yeah, that's a good question. So when I went to ASU, I knew I wanted to be in supply chain. It was not necessarily new, but new to me, supply chain was. And so when I went to ASU, they had a really big supply chain program, and it just sparked my interest. And then after my junior year, when I had my internship with Medtronic, something that I kind of realized throughout that experience for analytics, which is where I was placed, there's a whole creative side to that. I initially thought that, I don't want to be in analytics because I'm just looking at numbers all day, and I'm just looking at, files and this and that. And that's what my brain thought analytics was. And I think that's pretty common. But until I had that experience with Medtronic, I kind of shifted my thoughts on analytics, and I was able to create visuals. So when you think about looking at data, you're looking at a chart versus numbers. And there's a whole creative piece to that, and there's design that goes into that, and that really was fun for me. And so when I had that experience with Medtronic, I just knew right away that that's what I wanted to be in. And so I genuinely do love my day job, and I'm very excited and happy that I had that experience, because I don't think I would have ended up in analytics if I didn't, just based on my understanding of what analytics was at the time. So that's kind of how I got here.
That's great to hear about the creative aspect. I think anytime you have a team member who can use data to tell a story in a creative way, for people who might not be data driven, and show that story that makes it understandable and useful, is really, really important. Genoa, how about you? How did you choose?
I know, and it's a bit weird to talk about how great supply chain is since I just moved over to finance. But supply chain is still where I started. So yeah, well before I started college, I knew I wanted to be in supply chain. I'm driven by, efficiency and, process improvement. And when I found out that there was a job for that, so I'd always been interested. And I really got drawn to man planning. So like I said, I did my internship with that team. But, apart from, you're working with large quantities of data. So just apart from developing that skill, I really was attracted to that position because I was always interested in learning how the business functioned, and how, I know Ruben had talked about, learning how products are made. Well, demand planning is really the beginning of the supply chain. and you're working so far. So it was a great place for me to get started and understand where everything's coming from. And then honestly, the social part of it, learning how to build connections with regions. So a lot of your role is actually building trust. The regions have to trust that when you go to leadership, you're defending them, you're defending their forecast. So understanding that, certainly a big skill. And then I think, like Megan was saying, learning how to present data in an effective way. So you're communicating to leadership a lot, and they don't care about, these tiny little numbers, or they don't really care about the numbers, they care about the business. And so how do you take your position, which is focused on the numbers, and put it into a story that the leadership really cares about? So it was really exciting to just be a part of that position specifically, but just to be a part of supply chain, because you're really seeing how we're moving products and building stuff and getting it to our patients. And that's what we're all about.
That's great. And that really kind of leads into a next question in this. But before I ask it, I just want to remind the participants, if you all have questions that you want specifically answered, feel free to post those in the chat or raise your hand. We want to make sure that you get your questions answered. While you all are thinking of a question that you want to ask, let me ask, kind of trailing off of what you were talking about a little bit, Genoa, tell us about what is the culture like at Medtronic in terms of expectations and standards and support and things like that. You alluded to that a little bit with communicating with leadership a lot, but can you, each of you kind of tell us in your area, in your experience, what's that culture like for you?
Yeah, did you want me to start?
We can start with you, Genoa.
Okay, yeah. And honestly, that's you kind of hit on it, exactly what drew me to Medtronic. So my internship program was actually the first summer that COVID hit. So within 3 months, they had to move the entire thing virtual, which, as I'm sure all of you are aware, is not an easy thing to do. And so just even from the beginning, I could really see that Medtronic was passionate not only about their patients, but about their employees. And that even, through Zoom, I was seeing that every single employee was really driven behind quality and making sure that we were delivering, safe products. And so it's like, that was the first thing that drew me to Medtronic, that it wasn't, about bottom line. It was about, are we doing, ethically what we need to be doing? So that was the first thing. And then it was incredibly welcoming. I mean, as soon as I, started, I had one-on-ones with the entire team set up, and you're trying to get to know everybody. And that's not an easy thing to do over Zoom, because I had to remember, my team had just transitioned to Zoom as well. So it was new to them. So just an incredibly welcoming atmosphere. And, coming in as an intern, you don't know anything. And so their focus on, just including me on calls or setting up calls with me after big meetings to say, did you understand any of the stuff that we just went through, and walk me through it? It's incredibly welcoming. And it was clear that they wanted me to succeed. And I was more important than it wasn't a 3-month internship that they were investing in. They were trying to help me grow my career and learn.
Oh, that's great to hear. Megan, how about you?
Yeah, just echoing what Genoa said. So my internship was in person before 2020, and I mean, so welcoming. I mean, you walked into the office, and I just kind of knew right away that there was that fun and live atmosphere. And I saw that throughout my internship too, because you have your internship manager, but you also have a peer advisor, and you also have a mentor, and they, kind of like Genova said, they care about your career. I mean, they're not just investing in you in those 3 months that you're there, and then that's it. I mean, they really want you to succeed, and they care so much about turning interns into full-time employees. And I think that speaks volumes about the company. And so I just knew right away that I wanted to be a part of Medtronic, and mostly because of the employees. My manager at the time was awesome. She made sure I had exactly what I needed. She made sure that I succeeded. And not only that, but she told me how I could succeed. So I didn't feel like I was in the dark throughout my summer internship. And that was something that was really important to me, was having all the expectations laid out to say, here's what we're looking for. Here's how you can succeed. Go and do that. Because then I felt like I was set up for success that internship. that could, turn into a full-time career, which is exactly what I was looking for from an internship perspective anyways. And then even after my internship, now as a full-time employee, I have mentors throughout Medtronic. And that right there, even one of my mentors actually was my internship manager at the time. And so I just think, we as a company, people are awesome. And not only that, but Medtronic does help us see how we connect to the patient. So even though I'm in an analytics role, I'm so far from sales and so far from, seeing the patients every day, but Medtronic does such a good job seeing how it all ties together, so that I can see that I have an impact on the patient, even though I'm not, in hospitals day to day. So I could go on and on about the company and how awesome it is, but those two things really stood out to me.
Megan, you're talking a little bit about something I've heard from others before about that touch point where everyone in the company gets to see how the work that they do impacts the patients. And I'm not going to get this name right, so correct me, but it's something about your holiday event where you get to hear from the patients.
Yep. Yeah. So that's our annual holiday program. So at the end of the year, we have a holiday program, and basically what is it? All Medtronic employees get to attend, and we have patients come in and speak about how we have affected their lives and how we have changed their lives with our products. And again, that right there, I mean, that is such a powerful, impactful call that we're on to see how, we are here doing, yes, our everyday jobs, but we're actually, making change in people's lives. And so that's a really big program. I think everyone at Medtronic will tell you how that is their most favorite thing all year. And we all look forward to it because, just hearing from the patients themselves and what they've been through and how we can help them and how our products are really saving their lives. It's so impactful. So yes, I think every Medtronic employee will talk about the holiday program.
Yeah, the smile on your face is the same smile I see when anybody talks about that event. So really, really impactful, just to keep you guys focused on the work that you're doing and the purpose. Ruben, how about you? How have you experienced the culture at Medtronic in terms of expectations and standards and things like that?
Absolutely. Before I begin, this program that Megan was referring to is very emotional, actually. Every year is people crying, and because of the content, because experiencing what the patients are sharing with us is very touching. And it goes with the culture begins with a mission statement of the organization, right? Which is alleviate pain, restore health, and extend life. And that is pretty much what is at the center of the organization. Everything we do is with that mindset. So the company is focused on results oriented towards achieving that mission statement. So everything we do is having that in mind. And then we have the framework within the organization with the specific pillars, if you will, to allow us to do that, right? From the integrity and honesty programs that we have in place, right, to the inclusion, engagement, and equity. So all of that is permeating the organization. So Megan and Genoa talk about their career aspirations, the support they are getting, and this is in line with the framework, right? So the company has that very strong foundation to allow this to happen. So managers, such as in my position, we have a very, very strong foundation to support that framework. So there is consistency. Pretty much in every side you go is the same. We follow the same framework. So it's great. I've been in other companies, and this culture is very friendly, very inviting, and motivating to do the best of what you can do for the organization and for the patients ultimately.
Wonderful. Can you all share a little bit about some of your biggest challenges? What are some of your biggest challenges in your work right now? And also flip that and talk about some of your biggest rewards that you've experienced. Ruben, do you want to kick that off?
Yeah, absolutely. I think the biggest challenge from my perspective is being a global company, you need to interact with many, many people. And speed is a challenge. Getting things done because of this need to confirm with people within your own site, maybe, but in positions like ours, I think, Megan and Genoa and myself, we need to collaborate with people from multiple sites within the US or maybe globally. And that slows down a little bit the pace, if you will. So the challenge is how do we find ways to speed up that process? I think is the biggest challenge. When we introduce, for example, new products to the market, it takes time because it's a lot of functions involved. We have regulatory, we have quality, we have manufacturing, we have marketing, finance, and so forth. And we need to get to a point in which is one voice, right? One voice driving towards a common goal. So from my perspective, that's a big challenge. The reward, though, once you get to the objective, is immense. Once we deliver these new products to the market, such as the robot, the Hugo was launched April last year. And since then, we have done many procedures, as I said, in Latin America and Europe, India, and now we are in Europe. We are moving forward to get clearance from the FDA to do it in the US. But the benefit, if you look at the feedback from the physicians or from the surgeons, is great. It's like make you smile that you achieved the objective to bring this innovation to the marketplace for the benefit of the patients.
I can't wait to go read more about Hugo. This is the second time I've heard about him in the last 48 hours. I'm excited to learn more. Megan, how about you? What are some of your biggest challenges and rewards?
Yeah, I would almost echo exactly what Ruben was saying. I mean, that applies to any role, I think, throughout Medtronic, and even other companies too. I mean, even though I'm in an analytics role, it takes time. It takes time to deliver a product, a data visualization. It can take anywhere from weeks to months. And, this morning at 7, I was on a call with somebody who it was 5 o'clock their time in the afternoon. And so, trying to collaborate with people who are all the way across the world, that is a little bit of a challenge, but it's also rewarding at the same time. You get to, Zoom is a thing nowadays. So I get to be on a call with somebody who's a completely different cultural background, and I'm learning things from them, and they're learning things from me, and we're collaborating together when, if we were in office, we wouldn't be doing that. And so I think that is really cool about my day job, is that I get to collaborate with people all across the world. I think that's one of the most cool things about my job. And then, the most rewarding is delivering a product at the end of the 3 months. It took us 3 months to launch something, even though it's not necessarily a product. It's a data tool that we're launching within Medtronic. But seeing how that can help people throughout their day jobs, I think is really cool, and it is very rewarding. So producing dashboards so that leaders can look at them and make their business decisions based on something that you created, that's super rewarding. And so that's kind of what drives me throughout the day. When I'm doing my work, I just kind of think about the end result, and I think about how I can make someone's day job easier. And that's what Medtronic is striving for, is ease of work. It's always something we talk about. We want to make our jobs easier. How can we do that? And that's something that I get to see every day with the tools that we're launching.
Yeah, awesome. Jenna, I want to ask you, and feel free to answer in your current or your past role, but also you've just recently done the internship program. So I'm wondering if you wouldn't mind kind of putting your internship hat on and answering that question. As an intern, what was the most challenging and rewarding aspects of that internship experience?
Yeah, absolutely. I'll think back. I think the biggest challenge is, like, Medtronic is a huge company. And so when you come in, there's a lot to learn. And when I say a lot, it comes down to the first day, I didn't even know how to use our email system. It's called Outlook. I was like, so it's like, there's that learning curve. There's all the acronyms. There's just figuring out how the company's even set up. People have been here 20 years. And so they're throwing names across, and you have no idea who these people are. So just trying to immerse yourself into the company. And like I think we've all said, there is incredible support, but it's just such a massive amount of knowledge that you need to even just understand before you can get started, that it does take some time. And so to me, I'm sure people can understand this. It's like, you don't like when you feel very out of your element. And all I did was feel out of my element for, at least the first month. And then even when you start getting handed your projects as well. So I think it's a challenge to feel confident enough to kind of take charge, and maybe even ask questions. But I think that's where it becomes rewarding as well, because this was really scary to me as an intern, but I think 2 weeks in, my manager had sent me like an Excel document and told me to do some data analysis. And I sent it out and he checked it. And it actually got used in meetings to leadership. And I thought, did you make sure to check it really well? Because I don't know what I'm looking at. But that's a really rewarding experience, because you're seeing, once again, the impact of the business. It feels like, what we see it for internships is, things that aren't really important. And here you are sitting and doing work that's actually business critical. So you're not only learning a lot, but you feel like you're important and you're making an impact. And then you catch on quicker than you think. And there's everybody to ask questions. So does that answer your question?
Yeah, absolutely. And you talked about, that your project was something that was actually used. I've just been doing kind of exit interviews with each intern, asking them about their experience and the support and like, what can we do better? And over again, what I heard was this, like, can you believe they actually use like the stuff I did on a real project for Medtronic? I didn't know it was going to be a real project. And just kind of that awe of getting those experiences. So that's great. That's great to hear. I feel like some of you have already touched on this, but I just have to ask it. What do you enjoy most about Medtronic? Like when you go and you brag about what you get to do, what's the thing that you just love to talk about? Genoa, you want to start?
Sure. And, I definitely experienced this in my previous role, and I'm even closer to it now. But I think, like we've all said, just the impact to the patients. I think you can get caught up every day, looking at the Excel, looking at the numbers, and you kind of forget what they represent.
Mm-hmm.
And then you listen to the patients, or you hear about, our field reps that are out there with the doctors in these surgeries and stuff. And you look at the number of patients we serve, and you realize that every single one of those units, every single one of those products is, a life-saving device or a life-changing device for somebody. And then you're out in the world and I was like, I've run into people that have, I'm in our pacemaker division, and I have people that like have Medtronic pacemakers, and it saves their life.
Yeah.
So that's, obviously we've talked about how great the employees are in the culture, and like that's absolutely a fantastic part of Medtronic. But just seeing what we do to the world, not even just the US, it's unbeatable.
Awesome. Megan, how about you?
Yeah, I think that's going to be the same answer for everyone that works at Medtronic. But and this is something that goes back to my internship. I love the mission. A lot of times you'll see in meetings that we're in, we start meetings with our mission. And so it really, brings us back every day to why are we here? Why are we doing our work? And I think Medtronic does a really good job of that. I already spoke to this, but my favorite part is the holiday program. I mean, that's just, I think hands down, it will always be my favorite part about being a Medtronic employee. I'm so far away from the patient. I'm in analytics. I'm looking at data and doing visualizations and stuff like that. But I see the tie, and they make sure that I do because it gives me a purpose. But yeah, my favorite part about Medtronic is that holiday program. I mean, it's emotional. It is raw. It is, you hear the story straight from the patient. And I think there's just nothing better than that.
We have a video of some of the interns talking about some of they didn't get to experience the holiday party, but that impact of when they realized the work I'm doing and how it's impacting people in my life and people I know, my grandfather or whatever their story is, how emotional that is, and realizing everybody at Medtronic is contributing to that work. Very cool. Ruben, how about you? What do you brag about?
Actually, I'm gonna put a spin on this with my answer, and it's about career growth. I brag about employees that I have had that have progressed their career over the years. So I pay special attention for the employees to develop the individual development plan, the annually. And I make it a mission for me to understand what is what they want to do, and how I can help them grow, even if that means that I will lose them, right, within my team. So, for example, I am open to a point in which if they need to go for an interview, internal or external, I encourage them to talk to me and say, you know what, I have a potential offer, I need to go to an interview, right? At the end of the day, it's about the employee being the best they can be to the fullest potential. And if they can do good somewhere else, so be it, right? So I brag about employees that have worked with me that are now in positions better than the one that I have right now. So I tell them, if you want to have my position, tell me, because then I can help you so you can help me also grow my own career, right? But yeah, one of the ones that I typically refer to is an engineer that was a manufacturing engineer. Now is a vice president of operations for, I think it's Walmart or something like that. And I brag about it because we spent hours and hours talking about ways to improve the way he worked and so forth. So it's about drive the employees bring, right? But also how we managers can help them grow as fast as they can grow. So
that's awesome. Speaking of advice, we've got some potential interns on here and some who will be listening later who are getting ready to go through the application process, the interview process. Can you all just kind of speak a little bit about your advice for them as they get prepared for those different elements of, writing a written application, or what to put on their resume, or a piece of advice about an interview? What would be your piece of advice as they get ready to navigate this process? And let's start with you, Ruben.
yeah, you know what, I as part of the Hispanic Latino group in Boulder, I often go to universities and talk about these topics with the students. And what the input that I have heard is that they are concerned about precisely what to put in the resume and things of that nature. And my feedback has been, put critical experiences. They don't have to be related to work. If you solve an issue, you had a situation that you had to resolve, put it there, because that speaks to the critical thinking that you have. And in any position within any organization, critical thinking is a very valued skill, if you will, or trait of any candidate. So that's what I'm suggesting is make sure you put critical experiences, regardless of the nature of the critical experience, and the magnitude of what you have done, right? So typically, if you are talking about, instead of being like a list of responsibilities, make sure it has information that speaks about the magnitude, either dollars or impact or something that tells us an idea of what is the relevance of what anybody has done, right? It doesn't have to be numbers or job related, because many students, they don't have the experience in any particular job. But in relation to anything that has been accomplished, put the relevance, the magnitude, and the critical experience that represented.
That's great advice. I heard another person speak yesterday about, at her full-time interview, she actually spoke about a dance group that she was part of and solving problems, within that group, and talked about what she had done. So all of your experiences
Absolutely.
that bring to that any critical thinking. Megan, how about you? What's a piece of advice you would give these as they're getting ready to do the application and interviews?
Yeah, I would say something that's very important is doing your research. There's a lot out there that you can find. I mean, just going on the Medtronic company site and just thinking through that, because a lot of the times, and even in my interview, something came up and I, was able to spark a conversation of, oh yeah, I saw that on your website, X, Y, and Z, and we were able to have a conversation about that. And yes, it's small. I mean, you can do, just 10, 20 minutes of research, but being able to show whoever's interviewing you that I've done the research, I'm interested, and I am driven, and I know a little bit about Medtronic. Yes, like Genova said, there's a lot more to learn once you join Medtronic and you kind of learn about the company as a whole. But just doing a little bit of research before your interview, that can speak volume speak volumes to whoever is interviewing you, because, you know, in their mind, it's, oh, you did the research and you are putting in the work, you're putting in the effort. And I think that goes a long way. You'd be surprised, not a lot of people do that. And so again, I think that'll be something that makes you stand out as a candidate, is just going on the Medtronic website and just kind of looking around. You can find a lot of things out there.
That's a great point. When I send out the message about the recording for this panel, you will get a list of the recordings for all the panels. And there's a lot of crossover between what's being said here today and other departments, other divisions. And so even listening to the other career panels and saying, oh, I heard, you know, so-and-so who works in this department talk about this. Can you tell me more about that? And how does that connect with the work in supply chain or supply management? There's a lot of rich information in these career panels. So I will encourage you guys to go look at those as well. That's great advice, going to the website and doing your research. Genoa, how about you? What would be your piece of advice for these candidates?
Yeah, Megan, you stole my answer. That's exactly it. I mean, like she said, I think it's so important to, I mean, obviously you're doing more than one interview, but it's really important to show why you want to specifically work for Medtronic. So I'll switch it then. I think, you know, I'm not a hiring manager, but the you know, advice I've always gotten is, you know, they know you're coming out of college, and so there's not, or you're in school, like you're not expected to have years and years of applicable experience.
Mm-hmm.
What they're really looking for is somebody that can work well on a team, and it's going to be fun to work with you, and, you know, you're a team player. So I think just really let that, like, be confident in that fact and really let that portion shine through. And I think what you mentioned about the dance program, I was like, be confident with the experiences that you have had. In the interviews that I just did, I'm actually part of a dance group as well. And I apologize because I kept using those as my examples for my experience. And then the hiring manager said, you know, we don't draw experiences from one place in life. We draw experience from so many things. She's like, I draw experience from being a parent that I've brought into work. Mm-hmm. And so recognizing that maybe while you haven't had specific, you know, experience within a company, you've had life experiences and you got to where you are. So just be confident with that.
That's all great advice. Awesome advice. I think we've got time for maybe one more question. So I just want to ask one more time, if the participants have any questions that you want to make sure that we get answered. We're coming close to the end, so feel free to raise your hand or put those in the chat. One final question for me, if there's any that come from the participants. What's the most important thing that you feel like that you gained from your undergraduate degree or early in your career that helps you now as a professional at Medtronic? And Genoa, we're going to start with you.
All right.
Yeah.
Great. And maybe it was the professors, and I think certainly my manager was asking the right questions in terms of, I think we've spoken a little bit about, you know, you're presenting to leadership and what they're interested in isn't necessarily what you do on a day-to-day basis. And so I really learned that through undergrad as well, was as people say, like, you're in the weeds of your project, but at the end of it, you usually have to present to the class. So learning how to kick out the information that's not necessarily critical and present what's the problem, what did you do, and what's the solution, and what's the long-term result. So just really learning how to sort through that type of information and create a overall view.
I'm guessing that's something you use a lot day to day.
Yes, and I still have a lot of room for improvement as well. So I mean, it's one of those things that I'm always learning, because as I'm, you know, giving those presentations, you're listening to the questions that leadership is asking, and you're realizing areas that maybe you didn't need as much information, or areas where you may be lacking. So it's by no means an expert, but definitely have improved.
Awesome. Megan, I'm gonna post that question to you, and we're getting a question in from a participant, so we'll jump to that one next. But is there something in your undergrad experience or early in your career that you learned that's really helping you now in your professional work at Medtronic?
Mm-hmm. I would say, and I'm going to twist this a little bit, you know, into the perspective of potential interns, getting involved on campus, I think, speaks volumes, because kind of like Genova said, you're not expected to have 5 years of corporate experience when you're coming in for an internship. But getting involved in campus, be involved in a supply chain program, or, being a teacher assistant for something, or taking on an extra project, or a business fraternity, or something like that, that can just give you a little leg up on others, I think speaks volumes, because that will get you your experience. And a lot of the times that's what you end up talking about at your interview, is, I also, while I was in class, I also did this and this and this. And, they can see that you're driven. They can see that you're a team player and you're really good at, collaborating with other people. So I think getting involved can also lead to internships. And I don't know if it's talked about a lot at your schools, but internships are a great way to get real world experience, because you learn so much in class, but it's how you apply it is really, I think, what gets you the really good experience. And so I would say be driven in class and in school, and get yourself involved in things, and really push to get internships, because I think that's the best way to apply your school experience for you to come out of college and try and find a corporate role somewhere. Because a lot of the times your real world experience that you get at your internship will help navigate, I want to be in analytics, and my Lord, I don't want to be overdoing, something else. So I would just say get involved and really try things out. And, if you can get internships, grab them, because they really help you get that experience.
That's great advice. I heard from some of our interns saying, I know I want to be at Medtronic, but I got to do this experience in last summer. Can I come back in summer 2023? I'd like to explore this division now, because I got introduced to that and I didn't get that experience. So great. And the question that was posed by one of the participants looks like it was specifically for recruiting. So thanks, Brittany, for picking that up and answering that. Ruben, what about you? Are there any important lessons you learned early in your career, back in your undergrad studies, that's really helped you as a professional at Medtronic?
Absolutely. Before I answer, though, I want to share some insights about other ways to get into Medtronic. And I always share the connections through LinkedIn. Yeah, all of us, I think, are open to connections through LinkedIn. Personally, I offer direct interaction through LinkedIn. Anybody interested with questions or advice, I try to do that. Because that may open doors, right? They may open doors for either temporary assignments or positions that may be advertised through the website that are fresh, so we can direct people to interested people into those avenues. And in relation to the question, the resourcefulness. So when I went to college, we had limitations. Back then, we used to have the floppy computers yet, maybe even an older version of those. So we had to learn how to do research, how to accomplish projects with limited resources, if you will. I was part of a regional tournament about robotics, and we had to procure every piece of component that was needed for an automated system. So that type of project allowed me to be resourceful, which is something that I apply to date, right? You need to find ways to resolve the issues you are faced with the resources that you can get, right? In a global company like this, I mean, the resources are, we have capital, we have investments and things of that nature, so it helps a lot, but it's not the only thing, right? You need to be able to reach out to different functions globally to get the support that you need. So that is part of the being resourceful, if you will.
Awesome. And he's right about the LinkedIn piece. When I send out these slides, their names will link to their LinkedIn profiles. So feel free to reach out to them. And I still need to update Ruben's and get his LinkedIn on there. So I'll update that before I send it out. Just some quick next steps. As you're getting ready to apply for this, and you've probably already seen this, but if you go to ship.org/internship, that's where you're going to find the information about the application process for this. So if you are interested in being part of the internship experience through SHIP and Medtronic, you're going to want to apply through the application process through SHIP. If you've already started the application through the Medtronic site, that's okay, but that won't get you into this cohort through the internship experience. So go to that site and you'll see a couple of things there. The first thing I wanted to point out was that 2023 Medtronic internship info session that we did. That recording is on that website, where Brittany from recruiting is kind of talking through the application process. There's a really awesome video from last summer's interns kind of describing their experiences. You'll see that link of the schedule for all the other career panels. It'll also come in an email. And just the big reminder is, remember that this application for this experience is due by 8 a.m. Central Standard Time, because that's where my desk sits. And on September 21st at 8 a.m., we will go in and we will download all the applications and begin the review process to begin inviting people to the first round interviews. So make sure that you get it done by 8 a.m. Central Standard Time, September 21st. And if you have any questions, email internship@ship.org. That comes directly to me. And we just thank our panelists so much for your time today. I know everyone has busy schedules, and we really appreciate your time and your insight. Really inspiring learning more about what you all are doing there at Medtronic. And thanks to the students who were able to join in. I know you also have busy schedules, so thanks for making time. And everybody, I hope you have a great day.
A pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.